Money comes naturally as a result of service. And the best embodiment for this maxim is Sridhar Vembu. He is the billionaire founder of Zoho, a SaaS company which does over $1 billion in revenue with almost $400 million in profit. And they have never raised a single dollar of VC money because Sridhar believed that for a venture capitalist, a company is a financial instrument, but for Sridhar, it is an instrument for service to the customers and to the society at large. He once said, and this is the most extreme I think you can get while doing business, and this is a very beautiful statement that he said, I will never do anything that will make my own mother uncomfortable. Think about this. I'm going to take a pause over here because this statement is so profoundly beautiful. Zoho's head office is definitely based in a metro city, but the de facto headquarters is based in a village. And they compete with Salesforce and Google with its de facto headquarters located in a literal village called Mathalamparai in Tamil Nadu. Sridhar, in an interview, said that we spend 3 times on research and development than what we spend on marketing for every dollar of revenue that Salesforce makes. So, Salesforce is one of his major competitors. This is what he's saying about them. For every dollar of revenue that Salesforce makes, it spends 50 cents in marketing and 15 cents only in research and development. So, is it a marketing company or a software company? I love that. And then he's saying, I'd rather give away $50 worth of software free to customers than pay $50 to an ad platform. He calls the extra money that Salesforce customers pay them as marketing tax, money the customer pays just to be sold to. This is anti business in the SaaS world, where growth at all costs is the mantra. Vembu serves the product first because to him, a superior tool at a lower price is the ultimate service. Zoho builds products for everyone, the $100 million startup or the small bakery. I too use Zoho Writer to write podcast scripts, including this that you and I are listening to. So I want to talk a little about this, and this is obviously not sponsored by Zoho. I would love to be sponsored by them though. I was using Google Documents or Google Sheets to write my podcast script. And then I accidentally pressed a button, and what happened was everything got deleted, and I could not get over 3 hours of my work back. So then I asked Gemini what software is free and saves every single second, and it recommended me Zoho Writer. So now I am using Zoho Writer. It's absolutely free and it saves every single edit, every single second. I love it. Thank you, Sridhar, for making Zoho Writer. Now, getting back to the podcast. So, Zoho prices their products at incredible value for money, the result being over 100 million users who love them. The money followed the volume. I want to take us back to year 2000, which was one of the defining moments for his company. Venture capitalists were offering him $10 million at a $200 million valuation. He rejected VC money because he believed and valued his freedom, but also because this is what he said about it. For a VC, a company is a financial instrument. For me, it is a social institution. I want to take a pause right there. Sridhar is taking this maxim way further. He talks about practicing non duality, which means to him, his corporate interests are not separate from society's interests. He calls it spiritual capitalism. We saw earlier how James Dyson built a tuition free university where he pays students to become the exact engineers his company needs. Sridhar took it even further by starting Zoho schools. This is what he said about it. I believe talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So basically, he's going to rural villages and hire 17-year-old high school grads whose parents are daily wage laborers, kids who are going to be wall painters or construction workers. And He's giving them 10,000 rupees per month as stipend to learn to code. And today, almost 20% of Zoho's engineers do not have engineering degrees. Almost 20% of Zoho's entire workforce comes from this program, a company effectively doing what government or NGOs claim to do. He actually set one of his company's biggest office in a rural village because he saw it as a strategic service to his country's talent pool to stop the brain drain to big cities. He's solving the problem no one's even talking about, no one's even thinking about. We bring young people from small towns into big cities, and their first challenge is loneliness. Then they face commutes that can stretch up to 2 hours each way. You are throwing people into a very big pressure cooker, and very tragically, some people break, other people are broken. He's solving work life integration for thousands of his employees working in his company. A huge financial advantage of this is that it lowers Zoho's cost structure, which he passes on to his customers as low costs and revitalizes the local economy by serving the community. The most interesting thing is how he views privacy for customers. He categorizes privacy into three cases, and this actually is the best thing that I've read about him. Number one is the secret lover. So this is for private communications. Two individuals or a business and its client, if they want to communicate privately, things like trade secrets, personal affairs, or sensitive financial data, Zoho serves this by ensuring absolute encryption, like a faithful messenger who refuses to open the envelope. The second point is refusal to use data to sell ads. If I am your doctor and I sell your medical history to a pharmaceutical company to target you with ads, I lose my license. Why do we allow Google and Facebook to do exactly that? We believe that the relationship between a business and a customer should be a fiduciary one. When you pay us, we work for you. If we sell your data, we are no longer working for you, we are working for the advertiser. That is a violation of trust. This is what he calls surveillance capitalism and rejects it completely. The third and most fascinating one is the secret rebel. He promises you to protect against the advertisers, but not against the government. Any company operating in a jurisdiction promising to protect a secret rebel against their own government is making a false promise. So Apple kind of makes this promise that they'll protect you even from FBI, but Sridhar is directly telling you that, well, we cannot do that. Sovereign power always prevails over mere companies. And what's happening here is, ironically, by acknowledging the limits of his power, he demonstrates he's the only one speaking honestly. It's the purest form of self interest. By being openly honest about what he can't achieve, you end up fully trusting when he shares what he can. It may seem bold to say this, but it's truly the most effective way to build trust, what Charlie Munger refers to as inversion. By openly acknowledging what he cannot do, like protecting you from state, he demonstrates honesty about what he can do, which is protecting you from advertisers. It's remarkable how each small choice ties together. He's able to be transparent because Zoho remained bootstrapped. No venture capital, no shareholders pressuring him. That freedom allows him to stay authentic without needing to make false claims to inflate the stock. His only obligation is to serve his customers. I love this quote he says on being bootstrapped. Yesterday, I met a lady in our village. I asked her how old she was. She gave me the village answer. Who knows all that? No one kept track of all that here. I nodded in agreement because that is how bootstrapped companies often are too. He said something which beautifully describes today's maxim. I don't look at the stock price or valuation. We are building capabilities. If you build capabilities, value follows. If you chase value, you lose capabilities. This is the most beautiful part of today's episode, and I really want you to listen to this closely. Sridhar is the most extreme example of this principle, this maxim that money comes naturally as a result of service, and he's using the four purusharth of Hindu dharma to explain it, the four aims of Hindu life: dharma, arth, kam, and moksha. Translated loosely, the four aims of Hindu life: duty, wealth, desire, and liberation. He says that modern capitalism has tragically inverted the ancient hierarchy by prioritizing wealth and desire over duty, transforming profit from a mere survival tool like oxygen. So he compares profit to oxygen. So transforming profit from a mere survival tool into a toxic obsession that erodes community roots. According to him, profit is like oxygen. You need it to survive, but that's not the reason you live. He seeks to write this balance using business as a vehicle to serve dharma by nourishing local ecosystems rather than extracting from them, treating wealth only as fuel, and ultimately aspiring towards liberation by detaching from the ego of the rat race to focus on work as selfless service. I'll end this episode with what I read in Make Something Wonderful, which is a collection of Steve Jobs' words, which I highly recommend you read. It reframes capitalism from extraction to not duty, but something far more beautiful, far more wonderful: gratitude. We eat food that we didn't raise. We speak a language that we didn't invent. We are the beneficiaries of the work of the rest of the human race. And the only way to express appreciation to the rest of the human species is to make something wonderful and put it out there. See you next Monday.